Alright, now we have the Battle of Chancellorsville. After the complete and utter disaster at Fredericksburg, Ambrose Burnsides is replaced by Joseph Hooker, the one guy that he did not want to be in charge, and he only took the job specifically because he didn't want Hooker to get it. Joseph Hooker moved his much larger army to attack Lee's smaller army at Chancellorsville, because Lee had made this decision to split up his already very small army, leaving some of them at Fredericksburg and moving the other 80% to confront Hooker. Now, Hooker's army was already much bigger before he decided to split it up, but now it's even smaller. But Joseph Hooker has never been in charge of this many soldiers before, and he's not very confident in handling such a large force. So even though he has way more soldiers than Robert E. Lee does, he still orders his men to retreat to a defensive position in the forest. And after retreating, they just kind of made camp there for the night, because I guess they were like, nah, nobody's going to attack us in the dark, it'll be fine. Stonewall Jackson is going to attack them in the night. He attacks them on the right flank of the Union Army, which had kind of entrenched itself around Chancellorsville. Jackson marched his army of 28,000, 12 miles undetected by the Union to get at their right flank, which is like their right side. At dinner time, while the Union Army is like, kind of like, they're getting into their PJs and like all their weapons are kind of put away and they're relaxing and they're getting their food, the Confederate forces come screaming out of the trees with their rebel yell and stormed out of the forest and attacked the Union right flank. The Union forces were completely unprepared and many of them were like in the middle of eating their dinner. And after about an hour, the right flank of the Union Army was completely disintegrated and in full retreat, and they suffered over 2,000 casualties. Later that evening, however, Stonewall Jackson was kind of creeping around the Union camp trying to figure out, like, where the best place to attack them would be, and he was kind of sneaking around, and some Confederate soldiers saw him, and they thought he was a Union soldier, and they shot him in the arm. Jackson got pneumonia from this, even after getting the bullet taken out. He ended up having, the wound got infected, and he ended up having the arm get amputated. And he died from this. Jackson's death was devastating to the Confederacy. Like, this was their strategy guy. He was like the guy for strategy. And it's going to impact Lee's battle strategies for the rest of the war. Now, it's really easy to kind of shake your head at the Confederacy and you're like, you dum-dums, why did you think he was a Union soldier? Like, you couldn't recognize him? Let me show you this. So one of these uniforms is a Confederate uniform, and the other one is a Union uniform. And in the dark, you can't really tell, even if you could, like, see the hats. Like, they look almost exactly the same. So you can kind of understand how, in the dark, it'd be very easy to confuse the two. After Stonewall Jackson died, the Confederates took the high ground in order to place cannons and fire at the Union soldiers. They also started setting fires around the town that the Union Army was camped out in, which is Chancellorsville, to kind of confuse the Union soldiers, and a lot of wounded who weren't able to get up and run were killed by the fire as it moved through the town. Joseph Hooker ordered a retreat, and he was wounded in the fighting, but despite the fact that he kept, like, passing out and being unconscious for, like, over an hour, he refused to turn over command, so nobody else, like, legally could give orders to the military, because he hadn't passed that off to anybody else. This is one of the most decisive Confederate victories in the entire Civil War. Like, this was like child's play for Robert E. Lee, even with Stonewall Jackson dying. Joseph Hooker's reputation was tarnished in the way that he handled the battle. And despite the fact that most of it's his fault, like, he's the one who chose to retreat, he's the one who decided to, like, make camp, he's the one who decided, like, he just wasn't very confident in handling the troops and didn't know what he was doing. He refused to hand over command after getting injured. He blamed the incompetence of his subordinate generals, meaning the generals under his command, despite the fact that, like, over half of his available soldiers were, like, never used in combat. He kept them, like, on the sidelines the entire time. But according to him, it was everybody else's fault, not his. On the Confederate side, though, this battle is often called Lee's greatest victory, and it gave him the feeling that his army is, like, destined to win the war. Even after losing Stonewall Jackson, we still won this battle, like, we cannot be stopped. And it gave him the confidence that his army could win in the North. And because of this, he's going to be like, we're going to march, like, as far north as we can. We're going to go invade Pennsylvania, and this is going to be where the Battle of Gettysburg happens.